I cut my trip short and came home early, hoping to surprise my husband. But as soon as I walked in, I caught him talking on the phone. Marriage is a total nightmare, man. Every morning I wake up wishing I'd made a different choice. If it weren't for her family's money, I'd be out of here already. We had literally just marked 3 years of being married. I didn't say a word. I quietly slipped back out and returned later at my usual time, acting like nothing had happened and giving him a kiss hello. Then 5 days passed and suddenly he blew up my phone, 19 calls in 1 hour. That's when it hit him. He realized what I had done. Honestly, I don't even know where to start with all this. My hands are shaking as I sit here typing this out on my phone. I've already deleted and rewritten this post at least 6 times. Everyone in the house is asleep, and I'm curled up in the bathroom with the shower running just so Ethan won't hear me crying. We've been married for 3 years now, me and Ethan. When we first met, he came across as sincere, refreshingly real compared to the types of guys I usually ran into through my family circle. My family's got money, not ridiculous wealth, but more than enough to never stress about paying bills. Ethan, on the other hand, grew up in a solid middle-class home. Just last weekend, we renewed our vows in this small, intimate ceremony with only close friends and family. He actually cried while reading his vows, y'all. He cried. Told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Anyway, the trip, me and my 3 college besties have been planning it forever. We were doing a girls' getaway in Nashville. We had a full itinerary, spa days, wine tastings, and a visit to that trendy rooftop bar that's all over TikTok lately. But on the second day, Bianca got food poisoning from this super sketchy hot chicken place, and Felicia had some kind of work emergency she had to deal with remotely. Things just started falling apart, so we figured we might as well call it early. I thought, hey, this is perfect. I can head home and surprise Ethan. He's always saying how much he misses me when I'm away. He sends me those silly couch selfies with his sad puppy face like, wish you were here. So I caught an earlier flight, grabbed his favorite nachos from this tiny dive near the house, and picked up that craft beer he's been obsessed with lately. I was honestly so hyped to see his reaction. I imagined his whole face lighting up the second he saw me walk in. I used my code to come in through the garage so I could really catch him off guard. Our house has this weird setup. You can't see the living room from the entryway. I heard his voice upstairs in the gaming room. He was definitely on the phone. There wasn't another voice, just his. I dropped the food off in the kitchen and crept upstairs, figuring I'd surprise him mid-conversation. And that's when I heard it. Marriage is a complete nightmare, bro. Every single day, I wake up regretting the choice I made. I stopped cold on the staircase. It was like my heart stopped beating for a second. I thought maybe he was just messing around with one of his friends, so I waited for him to laugh. But the laugh never came. If it wasn't for her family's money, I would have left a long time ago. Honestly, the only good thing about all this is I don't have to stress about bills or rent anymore. I stood there frozen, feeling my chest crack wide open. And the vow renewal last weekend? He called it pure torture. Said he had to fake his way through all these romantic lines while my family watched, getting misty-eyed. He actually said he's gotten good at putting on a show. Said it was Oscar-worthy. And then he laughed. He really laughed. But hey, he added, it's a small price to pay for the lifestyle, right? Her dad's even talking about bringing me into the family business next year. Once I'm set up, I'll have options. Way better than just being stuck as the money wife's husband. The money wife. That's what he calls me when I'm not around. After 3 years together, that's who I am to him. I don't know how I did it, but I walked back downstairs without making a sound, grabbed the food and beer, and slipped out of the house. I sat in my car in some random parking lot for almost 2 hours, sobbing like I'd never sobbed before. My mascara was a mess, and this sweet old lady actually tapped on my window to ask if I was okay. I told her my dog had died. First lie of many that day. I returned the food and made up a story that my husband wasn't feeling great. Then I texted the girls and told them I decided to check into a hotel near the airport to get some work done before flying back to Nashville the next day. I just drove around for hours trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. Every memory of our relationship started playing in my head like a bad movie with a sickening new twist. All those times he insisted on paying for dinner, but only when it was at cheap places. How he resisted letting me help with his student loans until I basically forced the issue. How his big dreams never seemed to take shape until my dad offered to make some calls. Even the anniversary gift from his parents. A wooden sign for our entryway that reads, "Where your story begins." I stared at it this morning while sipping my coffee, thinking our story was heading into its next beautiful chapter. But turns out, for Ethan, This story has always just been a business deal. I ended up flying back to Nashville. I spent 4 days acting like everything was fine around my friends, smiling, drinking way too much wine at night, and trying to hold it together. Then I came home right when I was supposed to. Walked in like nothing had happened. Kissed him hello. I looked into the eyes of a man who called our life together a nightmare. And I kissed him like I didn't know a damn thing. It's been 6 days now. 5 days of pretending. Sleeping next to someone who apparently regrets waking up next to me. 5 days of replaying every single moment of our marriage, trying to figure out which ones were real, and which were just part of his award-winning act. And I've been watching our bank accounts. Ethan's been making these weird little withdrawals. Not huge amounts, but like $200 here, $300 there. Always just under the threshold we agreed would require a conversation. So where's that money going? Is he building a getaway fund? Is there someone else? Oh God, what if there's another woman? Does she know I'm just the money wife? Do they laugh about me when I'm not around? I haven't said a word to anyone. Not my friends, not my parents, especially not them. My dad loves Ethan. Always says he's like the son he never had. It would break him to find out that Ethan sees him as nothing more than a paycheck. But I have started making quiet moves. Just last week, while Ethan was out at the gym, I did something I never imagined I'd be capable of. I went through his nightstand. I felt awful about it, but at this point I was desperate for answers. Tucked inside the drawer, I found something I wasn't prepared for. A second phone. One of those prepaid burners you can grab at Target. It was locked, but classic Ethan had left a sticky note on the back with the password scribbled on it. The man can't remember his own login info to save his life. There was only one contact saved in the phone. Just the letter C. And there were tons of messages. Text after text about meeting up. Money being moved around, talks about the plan, and how they just had to stay patient. One message from 3 months ago hit me hard. Just 2 more years and we're set. 2 more years until what, exactly? I snapped pictures of every single message using my own phone, then carefully put everything back in place down to the last detail. No trace that I'd been there. What's been messing with me the most is the mental game. It's not the betrayal. It's the performance I have to put on now, pretending I don't know, all while nudging things just slightly. I've been adjusting my behavior in small ways. Less hand-holding. A few more private phone calls. Dropping mentions of casual conversations with our family lawyer during dinner. Nothing direct, nothing accusatory. Just off enough to make him wonder. And he's starting to crack. 2 nights ago, I knew he snooped through my closet while I was showering. I'm meticulous about my boots. I lined them up in a specific order, and when I stepped out, I saw they'd been shuffled around. I didn't say a word. Just rearranged them nice and slow, while he sat on the bed pretending to be glued to his phone. Yesterday, I caught him flipping through the search history on my iPad, while I was in the kitchen cooking. I had left some choice searches in there on purpose. Things like signs your husband is cheating, and separate bank accounts in marriage. The moment I walked in, he panicked, tossed the iPad on the couch like it was on fire, and launched into this over-the-top praise about how amazing my lasagna smelled, even though I was clearly making stir-fry. And get this, our fridge has had this annoying clicking noise for months. Ethan kept promising he'd fix it soon. Well, after I casually floated the idea that maybe we should just buy a new one, he suddenly morphed into a handyman and spent 2 hours poking around inside it like a man possessed. Now, out of nowhere, every chore he's ignored for ages is magically getting done. The bathroom door that's been squeaky since last Christmas? Silenced. The porch light that's been busted since Halloween? Replaced. That annoying wobble in the kitchen table? Gone. It's like he's on some kind of frantic mission to prove he still brings something to the table, literally and figuratively. Lately, I've started meeting up with Marissa once a week for lunch. She's been my ride or die since college and the only person I've confided in about all of this. At first, she was stunned, completely speechless. Then the rage kicked in, and now she's basically my strategist, my sounding board, and my partner in crime. She helped me set up a brand new email account that Ethan has no idea exists, and she's the one who urged me to start keeping records of everything. Every lie, every weird withdrawal, every conversation that raises a red flag. Last Wednesday, I told Ethan I had to stay late for a client meeting. Truth is, I was holed up in a corner booth at Starbucks, scrolling through support forums about surviving infidelity and taking pages of notes. And out of nowhere, Ethan showed up. He walked in holding takeout like we were some newlyweds in a rom-com. In 3 years of marriage, he has never once brought me dinner while I was working. He claimed he just missed me. But the whole dinner he barely touched his food, just kept steering the conversation back to a call he'd overheard earlier. One where I mentioned to Marissa something about making big changes. That call he overheard? The one he's been obsessing over? Yeah, that was actually just me and Marissa talking about maybe redoing the guest bedroom, new paint, maybe switching out the bed frame. But hey, let him spiral. He doesn't need to know that. Anyway, that brings me back to the 27 missed calls I mentioned earlier. I finally figured out what triggered his little meltdown. That morning before heading out for meetings, I'd left a few printed statements from our joint account sitting on my desk. They clearly showed the pattern of those sneaky little withdrawals he's been making over the past year. I hadn't said a word to him about it, just casually left the papers there, like they didn't matter. But when I got home that evening, I could tell someone had moved them. Not dramatically, just enough that I knew they'd been touched. That's when it clicked. He'd seen them. He panicked. And that's why he called me 27 times in a single hour while I was in meetings. When I finally called him back after the barrage of missed calls, this is how it went down. Me? Hey, what's going on? My phone's been in my desk, I was in back-to-back meetings. Ethan, breathing hard, sounding frantic. No emergency. I needed to hear your voice. Are we okay? You and me? You've seemed different since you got back from Nashville. Me? Different? What do you mean? Ethan. I don't know, just distant maybe? And you've been taking more calls in private. Then the other day you said something about your dad reconsidering his business plans. I guess I'm just worried about you. And there it was. Slipping in a question about my dad's business like it was just part of his deep concern for my emotional well-being. Classic Ethan. The kind of manipulation I never saw before, but now it's as clear as day. Me? Everything's fine. Just work stress. Why would anything be wrong? There was this long stretch of silence, so long I actually checked the screen to make sure we were still connected. Ethan, finally. No reason. I just love you, that's all. Me? I love you too. Biggest lie I've ever told. After that call, I just sat in my car with the engine off and cried. Not because the marriage is falling apart. I think I've already accepted that. No, it was grief for the relationship I thought I was in. For the version of Ethan I thought was real. The man I fell in love with, the one I believed was honest and grounded and genuine, he was never real. Just a character, performed flawlessly by someone who saw me as a walking ATM with a smile. Then last night, he came up with a new idea. Said we should plan another vow renewal ceremony. This time, for our parents, the ones who couldn't make it to the small ceremony a couple weeks ago. I asked him why. What was suddenly so important about renewing vows we literally just renewed? He stumbled through some half-baked explanation about wanting to celebrate our love with everyone who matters. Something about creating new memories. But I knew exactly what it was. He's scared. He's starting to feel the ground shift beneath him, and now he's scrambling to lock in his place with my family. A second vow renewal? That's not about love. It's about him trying to keep his claws in the money and status he thinks he's entitled to. I gave him a soft smile and said, maybe next year. The wave of relief that washed over his face was almost theatrical, it was that obvious. What he doesn't realize is that while he's out here trying to solidify his place in my life, I've already made my first move. I didn't go to our family's usual lawyer, too many connections, too many eyes. Instead, I took Marissa's advice and reached out to someone entirely outside our social circle. Someone discreet, sharp, and highly recommended. I have a meeting scheduled for next week to go over all my legal options. In the meantime, I've been quietly laying the groundwork. I've documented every unexplained withdrawal, tracked every financial inconsistency, and started organizing critical documents. Passports, account information, birth certificates, even my grandmother's locket. I told Ethan I needed them for a photo shoot at a friend's place for her Instagram. Another lie. But at this point, I'm just following his lead. Then this morning, something strange happened. I was getting ready for work, standing at the bathroom sink, when Ethan slipped in behind me. He wrapped his arms around me and suddenly broke down. I mean full-on tears, voice cracking, shoulders shaking. He said he felt like he was losing me and didn't understand why. For a brief second, I felt myself cracking, tempted to confront him right there. But then I remembered everything, the phone call I overheard, his mocking laughter, the way he described our vow renewal as torture. So instead, I just rested my hand on his and said, "Everything's fine, I've just been swamped at work." And just like that, his emotions vanished. Dried up the moment I mentioned possibly postponing our New York trip next month. The one with the luxury hotel recommended by his influencer buddy. Suddenly, the crisis wasn't so urgent anymore. Amazing how fast a tear dries when luxury's on the line. The confrontation is coming. I can feel it. But I want him unsteady. I want him questioning everything. I want the ground beneath him to feel as unstable as mine has been for weeks. Is it petty? Possibly. But when someone tears down your entire sense of reality, when you realize the person you loved never actually existed, I think a little pettiness is more than justified. Edit, for those wondering, no, we don't have kids. Thankfully, Ethan always had one more thing he needed to accomplish before we started a family. In hindsight, that thing was likely him trying to lock down enough leverage to walk away with a chunk of my assets. Edit 2, Ethan just texted me asking if we can have dinner with my parents this weekend. Says he misses them. Of course he does. Second update. Hey y'all, been about a month since my last post. So much has changed. First off, thank you. Truly. I've read every single message, even the critical ones. And believe me, I've questioned myself plenty throughout this. So, picking up where I left off, after discovering Ethan's been quietly siphoning money and staying in this marriage purely for access to my family, I spent the past several weeks gathering information and planning a meticulous exit. My original goal was to confront him only when everything was airtight, legal strategy in place, financials documented, personal assets secured. But sometimes life has its own timing. Remember that dinner Ethan was so eager to arrange with my parents? Yeah, that happened last weekend. And it was illuminating. He was laying it on thick, complimenting my mom's new curtains like they were museum pieces, chatting with my dad about his golf game like they were best friends, even volunteering to help my sister set up her new Sonos system. On the surface, he looked like the ideal son-in-law. But now that I know the truth, I could see the manipulation behind every gesture. Every word was a move in a long con. Then, right in the middle of dinner, he casually drops that he's been looking into some investment properties. My dad, bless him, lights up and starts talking about the local market and how property values are expected to spike over the next 5 years. And Ethan? His eyes actually lit up. I'm not being dramatic, it was like watching a gambler hit the jackpot. That night, after we got home, I caught him browsing real estate listings on our iPad. All way above our actual budget. When I asked how we'd afford anything like that, he grinned and said, "Your dad mentioned helping with the down payment." Except he didn't. My father never said anything of the sort. The next morning, I met with the lawyer Marissa referred me to. And let me tell you, she was a powerhouse, assertive, no-nonsense, and incredibly knowledgeable. She walked me through every detail of our prenup and helped me understand exactly where I stood. The good news? While the prenup gives Ethan some leverage, it's not ironclad. And even better? With the evidence I've gathered, including the financial forensics, there's a strong case to challenge certain provisions based on fraud and misrepresentation. That could be a game changer. Meanwhile, Ethan was home unraveling. I'd accidentally, on purpose, left my laptop open with a tab showing flight prices to California, where my cousin lives. It was part of my backup escape plan. When I got home, the house smelled like garlic and hope he'd gone all out. My favorite wine. Candles. A full 3-course meal. He was trying so hard to be charming, but I could see the panic just below the surface. His hands were shaking when he poured the wine. Through dinner, he kept making these overly sentimental comments about how grateful he was for me, how much he loved our life, and how he didn't care about the money or my family, just me. It felt rehearsed, like someone trying to act out sincerity without quite knowing the lines. Then he dropped the real bombshell. He said he wanted to start trying for a baby. Immediately. This coming from the man who spent 3 years dodging every conversation about starting a family. I nearly choked on my wine. I asked, "What changed?" He launched into some speech about discovering what really matters and finally being ready to build a future together. He even got misty-eyed again. I swear the man should have gone into acting. So I smiled and said, "That's funny because I've been doing some thinking about our future too." The way his face lit up, it was almost heartbreaking, honestly. He looked like someone being offered a lifeline. I continued, "I've been reflecting on our relationship a lot since Nashville." And just like that, the hope drained from his face. Panic crept in. His hand shot out for his wine glass so fast he nearly knocked it over. He asked, What kind of reflections? That's when I started laying the foundation. Not everything. Not yet. But just enough to watch him start to squirm. I told him I'd been thinking about honesty in marriage. About how sometimes people say one thing but mean something completely different. Let's just say, he didn't sleep well that night. Ethan's face went so pale I honestly thought he might hit the floor. He blinked a few times like he was trying to reboot his brain, and then asked what I meant by all that. Instead of giving him a straight answer, I leaned in and asked if he remembered what he said during our vow renewal. You know, the part where he called meeting me the best thing that had ever happened to him? He nodded slowly, trying to pull off a smile, but it looked more like he was fighting through nausea. I asked him if he meant it. Of course I did, he said quickly, reaching across the table to grab my hand. I meant every word. I pulled my hand back calmly. That's funny, I said, because I could have sworn I overheard you telling Danny that the whole vow renewal was torture. That you had to fake your way through romantic nonsense while my family watched. The rest of the color drained from his face. His jaw moved but no words came out. Just this awkward soundless gasping like he was trying to form a response and failing miserably. Before he could even recover I kept going. Or maybe I misheard. Maybe you didn't call our marriage a nightmare. Maybe you didn't say you regret it every single day. Maybe I imagined you telling him that the only upside to this relationship is my family's money. That's when he knocked over his wine glass, splashing red wine all over the white tablecloth. He just stared at the mess, completely frozen. No apology, no attempt to clean it up. Just horror on his face. Then he asked the question I'd been waiting for. When did you hear that? I looked him dead in the eyes and said, when I came home early from Nashville. I wanted to surprise you. Well, surprise. He launched right into damage control, his voice suddenly soft, trying to sound soothing, like he was comforting a child. Baby, you misunderstood. I was just venting to Danny. You know how people say things they don't mean when they're going through a rough patch. A rough patch? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. That's what we're calling it now? Then I leaned in a little. Tell me, which part exactly was the misunderstanding? The part where you called me the money wife? Or the part where you said you're just biding your time until you've got enough options to leave? Ethan's face shifted from pale to a dull stormy gray. It was clear he hadn't realized just how much I'd overheard. He fumbled for words, claimed it was all taken out of context. So I gave him a chance. Please, I said, enlighten me. What's the context where telling your friend that your marriage is a nightmare and you're using your wife for financial gain makes perfect sense? He had nothing. No answer. Just more sputtering and this wide-eyed look like a trapped animal. Then, like flipping a switch, he moved from denial to a teary apology. He told me he'd been going through some kind of personal breakdown at the time, swore none of it was true, that he loved me more than anything. It was dramatic. It was emotional. And it was utterly unconvincing. I just sat there watching him unravel. All those moments I used to think were so genuine. The soft looks, the whispered I love yous, the vulnerable confessions, now just looked like parts of a script. A long, carefully crafted performance. Finally, he asked, "Are you leaving me?" I looked at him and said, "I haven't decided yet." Of course that was a lie. I'd made up my mind long ago. But he didn't need to know that. Not yet. What followed were the most emotionally draining 2 weeks of my life. Ethan went full court press. He sent flowers to my office every single day, each bouquet more desperate than the last. He called my parents, telling them he was worried about me, that I hadn't been myself lately. He even brought up couples therapy, which was laughable coming from someone who once said our entire marriage was a nightmare. He even had the nerve to contact Marissa, yes, Marissa, asking her to talk some sense into me. That's when I knew he was flailing. But here's the kicker, not once during this whole grand display did he mention my family's money. Not one single time. It was like he was trying to erase the very thing that had motivated him all along. Too little, too late. Behind the scenes, I kept moving forward with my plan. I transferred the remaining money from our joint accounts into secure personal accounts in my name. I met with our family's financial advisor and made sure every asset was locked down, completely inaccessible to Ethan. I started packing up the things that mattered most, sentimental keepsakes, personal records, anything irreplaceable, and stored them in a unit he doesn't know exists. And then came the conversation I'd been dreading. I told my parents. It was brutal. My dad has always loved Ethan, saw him as the son he never had. And my mom adored him for, as she put it, the way he made me glow. Telling them that their beloved son-in-law was nothing but a fraud who saw me and them as stepping stones? It crushed them. My dad wanted to confront him right then and there, but I talked them down. I asked them to trust me. Just a little longer. 3 days ago, the dishwasher broke. Normally, Ethan would complain about the cost of a repair. But this time, he jumped up and offered to call someone immediately. I suggested we just buy a new one. He agreed before I even finished my sentence. He's trying so hard to act like money doesn't matter to him now. It's almost comical. Then last night, we went to a dinner party at Bianca's new place. Now Ethan's never exactly been a fan of Bianca. He once described her as a lot too loud, too blunt, too unfiltered. But last night, he was basically her biggest fan. He laughed at her stories, complimented her TikToks, yes, the very same ones he used to mock as cringy for her age. He was practically glued to her side, playing the part of the supportive friend. Halfway through the meal, Bianca's husband Grant, who has no idea what's going on, brought up a news story about some guy who scammed his wealthy wife for years. Everyone laughed at how dumb the guy was to think he'd get away with it. Everyone except Ethan, who suddenly became very focused on his mashed potatoes. Grant asked him what he thought. Ethan muttered something like, "Not all relationships are what they seem on the surface." That shut the table right up. I could feel Bianca looking at me, trying to figure out why the mood had just crashed. I didn't give anything away. I just smiled and asked her to pass the salt. On the drive home, Ethan was dead silent. Tense, jumpy. The moment we pulled into the garage, he turned to me with this panicked look in his eyes. "Is everything okay between us?" he asked. I looked at him for a long moment before I answered. "If you feel like something's wrong," I said, "maybe you should ask your conscience." He flinched like I'd slapped him. I didn't need to raise my voice, just the truth hitting him square in the chest was enough to knock the wind out of him. This morning I found him sitting on the couch, flipping through our wedding album. He hadn't touched it in years, and now suddenly he was all nostalgic? "Please." He claimed he was reminiscing, but the nervous look in his eyes told another story entirely. He's not reminiscing. He's searching. Trying to piece together what I know, how long I've known it, and what I might be planning. What he doesn't realize is that the wheels are already in motion. I've got a meeting set for tomorrow, with my parents and our family's financial advisor. Ethan thinks it's just some routine check-in about my trust, maybe a tax thing. What he doesn't know is that we'll be sitting down to formally remove him as a beneficiary from multiple accounts, and to map out the financial side of our upcoming divorce. I've already given my parents a heads up, told them to play it cool until after the meeting. Pretend everything's normal. Just a little longer. And honestly, I'm not even mad anymore. The rage burned out a while ago. Now I just feel worn out. Exhausted by the performance. By watching him scramble to keep the act going. By pretending I don't know he's been treating our entire marriage like some long-term investment strategy. Tonight, in one final Hail Mary, Ethan suggested we go on a second honeymoon. He even pulled out his phone and started showing me pictures of some over-the-top resort in Bali, private beaches, infinity pools, luxury spas. The old me? She would have been over the moon. But the version of me sitting across from him now? She just wondered how much of her family's money he planned to throw at this last-ditch attempt to hang on. I smiled and told him it sounded amazing, but that we should probably talk about it after the meeting with my parents tomorrow. He looked so relieved, like he thought he still had time to salvage this. He doesn't realize that by this time tomorrow, the life he's been carefully building on lies and manipulation is going to crumble underneath him. The meeting's set for 10 a.m. By 11, the truth will be laid bare. By noon, he'll know that the ride he's been enjoying, the one funded by love, trust, and family legacy, it's not just over, it's heading in reverse at full speed. Edit, just got a text from Ethan. He wants to order sushi for dinner tonight, a little treat before tomorrow's meeting. Oh, if he only knew what kind of feast he's walking into. Final update. Hey Reddit fam. I don't even know how to begin this last post. But I promised I'd update you all once everything was said and done, so here it is. The conclusion to this long, messy, eye-opening chapter of my life. First of all, thank you. From the bottom of my heart. Your comments, your DMs, your stories, you carried me through more than you'll ever know. On the days I wanted to scream, or break down, or second-guess every step, you reminded me I wasn't alone. Now the moment you've all been waiting for, the meeting. It went down exactly as planned. We all sat together in my dad's office, me, Ethan, both of my parents, and Mr. Langford, the financial advisor who's basically been family since I was a kid. Ethan walked in all confidence and smiles, clearly thinking this was his moment to lock in his place at the financial table. He was laying it on thick, thanking my dad, cracking jokes, probably imagining himself on a yacht by next summer. Then my dad calmly asked him, "Ethan, before we begin, anything you want to share with us?" Ethan blinked, a little caught off guard, but said no. "Everything's great." That's when Dad opened the folder. Neatly organized inside, printouts of Ethan's secret withdrawals, screenshots of his messages with D about their little long-term plan, and my personal favorite, a full transcript of that phone call I overheard. The one where he called our marriage a nightmare. I wish you could have seen his face. At first, confusion. Then shock. Then full-blown panic. And finally, that calculating flicker, the one that always shows up when he's trying to pivot the narrative. He stammered that it was all a huge misunderstanding. That he was under a lot of stress and didn't mean the things he said. That we were just going through a rough patch. That's when my mom, who had been sitting silently with her jaw clenched, finally snapped. She called him a gold-digging parasite. Said she'd never been so ashamed of trusting someone. And when he tried to appeal to her, saying they'd always had such a special bond, she laughed right in his face. She asked him, "Which version of you is the real one, Ethan? The man who cried through his vows, or the one who told his buddy our marriage was all fake?" Then Mr. Langford calmly laid it out. Ethan had been officially removed from all family accounts, trusts, and future business interests. He no longer had a seat at the table. Dad looked him straight in the eye and said, "Divorce papers will be delivered this afternoon. You have 24 hours to gather your things and leave our home." Ethan's last-ditch move? Turning to me, eyes full of tears, yes, actual tears, asking if I was really going to throw away 3 years of marriage over one stupid conversation. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "I'm not throwing anything away. You did that the second you decided I was just a paycheck in a dress." The divorce process was faster than I expected. Turns out when you've got an airtight case and a hell of a legal team, things can move quickly. Ethan tried to fight. He came in swinging, demanding half of everything, including future profits from my family's business. His opening demands were so outrageous, even his own lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into the carpet. But then we presented our evidence. The secret withdrawals. The burner phone. The texts. And the piece de resistance, the audio recordings of him spelling out that he married me for money. Suddenly his leverage evaporated. Just like that. In the end, he walked away with far less than he'd imagined, and frankly, more than he deserved. But the most satisfying moment? Our final mediation. His lawyer started rattling off this list of Ethan's contributions to my career and our family's success. My attorney didn't say a word, just hit play. And there it was, Ethan's own voice, laughing and telling Danny that he married me for the lifestyle and that being the money wife's husband was a small price to pay. That look on his face, hearing his own words turn into the final nail in his coffin? I'll carry that with me for a long, long time. He flinched, like my words physically hit him. The next morning, I caught him flipping through our old wedding album, something he hadn't looked at in years. Said he was feeling nostalgic, but his eyes told a different story. That panic-darting look wasn't sentimentality, it was fear. He was searching, trying to piece together how much I knew and what I might be planning to do with that knowledge. I didn't let on. Tomorrow, I have a meeting scheduled with my parents and our longtime financial advisor. Ethan thinks it's about some standard trust paperwork, routine family business. What he doesn't realize is it's actually the moment we'll be formally removing him from several financial accounts and laying the groundwork for our divorce. I already told my parents to act like everything's normal until it's done. Keep the masks on. Just for a few more hours. Honestly, I'm past the anger now. What I feel most is exhaustion. I'm tired of pretending. Tired of watching him perform like we're still in some romantic comedy when really, he's been writing a script behind my back for years. Tired of smiling through conversations with a man who viewed our marriage as a business strategy. Tonight, he made one last pitch, a second honeymoon. Said we should go somewhere exotic, reconnect. Showed me pictures on his phone of a 5-star resort in Bali. Infinity pools. Private chefs. Sunset views. The old me would have swooned. But the woman sitting across from him now just wondered how much of my family's money he planned to blow on this final smoke and mirrors routine. I smiled and told him it looked beautiful. Then added that we should talk about it after tomorrow's meeting with my parents. He visibly relaxed. Gave me this hopeful little grin like he still had time to fix things. He doesn't know that by 10 a.m. tomorrow, the floor will fall out from beneath him. By 11, he'll realize I've known everything for weeks. And by noon, the gravy train he thought he'd secured for life? That thing will be speeding in reverse with him standing on the tracks. Edit. Just got a text from Ethan. Wants to order sushi tonight. Something special, he said. A little treat before our big meeting. If he only knew. Final update. Hey Reddit family. I don't even have the words to express how much your support has meant to me. You've held me up through the worst moments of my life, offering kindness, strength, advice, and even a few laughs when I needed them most. So here it is. The final chapter. The meeting with my parents and our advisor went exactly how I hoped. We met at my dad's home office, me, Ethan, my parents, and Mr. Langford, our family's financial guy since I was in braces. Ethan walked in looking smug, confident, probably thinking he was about to secure his spot in the inner financial circle for good. My dad started by asking him if there was anything he wanted to tell us before we got into things. Ethan just smiled and said, "Everything's great." Then my dad pulled out the folder. Inside were printouts of all the unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. Screenshots of Ethan's messages to D outlining their long-term plan. And the crown jewel, a full transcript of the phone call I'd overheard when he thought I was still in Nashville. His face was a masterclass in emotional collapse. Confusion, shock, panic, and then that flash of calculation as he scrambled for a new angle. He tried to say it was all a big misunderstanding, that he'd been going through a rough time and didn't mean what he said. But my mom wasn't buying it. She'd been quiet until that moment. Then she unleashed. Called him a manipulative, gold-digging fraud. Told him she'd never been so wrong about someone. And when he tried to tug at her heartstrings, saying she knew the real him, she hit him with, which one? The man who called his marriage a nightmare, or the one who sobbed through his vows? Mr. Langford explained the legal steps. Ethan was being formally removed from all family-related accounts and trusts, effective immediately. And then my dad delivered the final blow. Divorce papers would be served later that afternoon, and he had 24 hours to get his things out of our house. Ethan's final move was turning to me, tears in his eyes, real ones. I think he missed his calling in Hollywood, asking if I was really going to walk away from 3 years of marriage over one stupid conversation. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I'm not the one throwing anything away. That was you, the day you decided I was just a walking trust fund." The divorce process? Surprisingly fast. Turns out when one side has all the receipts and an elite legal team, things move quickly. Ethan came in swinging, demanded half of everything, even future business interests tied to my family. His lawyer looked embarrassed reading some of the demands out loud. But once we presented the recordings, the texts, and evidence of hidden accounts, his leverage disintegrated. In the end, he walked away with far less than he wanted. And in my opinion, more than he deserved. My favorite moment came during our final mediation. His attorney started rambling about how Ethan had supported me and contributed meaningfully to my success. My lawyer simply played a clip of Ethan laughing and telling Danny that being married to me was his meal ticket and referring to me as the money wife. That shut it down. After the legal dust settled, the real healing started. And let me tell you, it hasn't been easy. I've been through the emotional ringer, grief, shame, guilt, heartbreak. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I let it go on for so long. But I got help. I found an incredible therapist. Seriously, if you're on the fence, do it. Best choice I made. She helped me understand that Ethan's manipulation worked not because I was weak or naive, but because he was calculated. Good at what he did. Skilled at wearing masks. She helped me realize that trusting someone isn't the problem, breaking that trust is. The failure wasn't mine. I moved out before the house even sold. Too many memories clinging to the walls. I found this cozy apartment downtown, much smaller but totally mine. Decorated top to bottom exactly how I want with zero compromises. No input from anyone else. The first night there was tough. I'd been so laser-focused on practical stuff, changing the address on my Amazon, figuring out where to put my ridiculous collection of kitchen gadgets, that I didn't prepare for how heavy it would feel emotionally. But slowly I started finding pieces of myself again. Parts that have faded without me realizing. Remember how Ethan used to say my laugh was too loud in public? Well, last week I snorted out loud at a TikTok while standing in line at Starbucks. Didn't apologize. Didn't shrink. Just laughed. Baby steps? My relationship with my parents has actually grown stronger through this. My dad surprised me by apologizing. Said he felt like he should have done more to prepare me for the reality of growing up with money, how it makes you a target sometimes. It was the most open, heartfelt conversation we've ever had. And my mom? Oh, she's gone full mama bear. Checks in daily. Sends me articles like 10 signs he's just after your money and how to spot a gold digger. It's a little much, but I love her for it. She's even tried to set me up on a few blind dates with guys she's personally vetted for financial independence. I've said no to every single one. I'm not there yet. But her heart's in the right place. Marissa and Bianca have been my rocks. Marissa's been my co-strategist from the beginning, and Bianca has shown up in ways I'll never forget. Felicia, sadly, took Ethan's side. They were friends before he and I got together, and she believed his version of things. I haven't heard from her since. The weirdest moments come when I run into people who don't know the whole story. Like last week, I bumped into Danny. Yes, that Danny from the infamous phone call. We locked eyes in the paper towel aisle at Target. He gave me this awkward half-wave, then suddenly got really interested in his shopping list. Later, I caught him watching me from the parking lot as I loaded my car. It was clear Ethan had spun some version of the story that made me the villain. Whatever. Let him. Last month, Ethan showed up at my apartment unannounced. Said he wanted to explain everything. I told him he'd had 3 years to be honest. I wasn't interested in his rewritten version of events. He tried to hand me a letter. I didn't take it. He left it in my mailbox anyway. I almost tossed it, but curiosity got the best of me. It was exactly what you'd expect, a mix of apology and excuses. He said he'd genuinely grown to love me, despite his initial intentions. That he regretted what he'd said. That he missed me. Missed us. I read it once. Then shredded it. His words don't carry weight anymore. According to Marissa's cousin, who works at a high-end steakhouse downtown, Ethan's now dating the daughter of one of my dad's business associates. She's been warned, but apparently she thinks he's just misunderstood and that I must have done something to drive him away. Some lessons, unfortunately, have to be learned the hard way. I've also gotten really into cooking again, something Ethan used to dominate. Last night I made mushroom risotto and it didn't suck. That's progress. Do I still have bad days? Of course. Some mornings I wake up furious that I gave 3 years of my life to someone who saw me as nothing but a walking bank account. Sometimes I catch myself second-guessing every little memory, replaying conversations, wondering how I missed the signs. But I'm healing. Slowly, surely on my own terms. The divorce was finalized last month, 55 days faster than average for our county. The house sold quickly, and I used my share to finally pay off some lingering student loans, then invested the rest. Ethan tried to claim emotional distress and damage to his professional reputation in the final hearing. The judge shut that down in record time. Last week, my mom sent me a Facebook screenshot of Ethan at some charity gala with his new girlfriend. My first reaction wasn't jealousy, or sadness, or even anger. It was relief. Pure, unshakable relief. He's someone else's problem now. Relief. That's what I felt most of all. Relief that I no longer have to second-guess every smile, every soft word, every affectionate gesture, wondering if it's sincere or just another step in some long con to siphon money from my family. Relief that I'm no longer the money wife. She's gone. Buried with the lies and the performance. Long live just plain Natalie. Oh, and remember that second phone I found? The one with all the cryptic messages to someone labeled just D? Well, mystery solved. D stands for Camille. Ethan's ex from college. She reached out to me not long ago, out of the blue. Apparently, she and Ethan had rekindled their connection 8 months after our wedding, and they'd been in touch ever since, throughout our entire marriage. He'd been sending her money regularly, promising her that once the plan was complete, they'd finally be together. She even sent screenshots to prove it. There was one message where Ethan told her that our vow renewal, was the final hurdle before moving to phase 2. I stared at those words for a long time. Phase 2. I didn't even feel angry when I read it. No rush of rage, no heartbreak. Just a kind of hollow pity for her. Because she truly believes she's different. That she's special. That he wouldn't do to her what he did to me. So I sent her one message back. Good luck. You're gonna need it. Edit. A few people have asked if I'm still in touch with Ethan's family. The short answer? Barely. His parents did reach out after everything came to light. They were devastated. Genuinely shocked by what he'd done. They apologized profusely and said they had no idea who their son had become. We exchange holiday cards now. That's it. Some connections just aren't worth holding on to.